Okay, so now we're on the second pregnancy with my son. And well, let me first say this about my first pregnancy. So we wanted a boy first, and we were just convinced that it was a boy. So when it was time for the ultrasound appointment, at 20 weeks, they do like the anatomy scan. So it's not just to tell the gender, they're making sure, all the body parts are there and how they should be. So me and my husband, we're so anxious, but they're like, okay, we're gonna start with the brain. We're looking at the brain and da 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 da. So after a minute, I'm like, okay, y'all, is that a penis? And she's like, no, no, that's part of the brain. So then she's like, okay, we're looking at the heart. The heart looks good. So again, I'm like, is that the penis? Ma'am, no, we not there yet. I'll tell you when we get to the genitals. So they going. She's like, okay, here we are. I see what it is. Are y'all ready to find out? And we like, yes. When they said it was a girl, oh my gosh, my husband's face dropped. He was like a little kid in a candy store whose mom just told him they can't get no candy. Like, it was funny. His reaction. So, yeah, it was a girl. So, when I got pregnant with my son, he did not go to the ultrasound. Actually, that was my first pregnancy was the only ultrasound appointment that he went to. With my son, he didn't go. But actually, before they did the 20-week ultrasound, I got like the genetic testing and stuff done. I don't know, maybe around 10, 12 weeks. So they were like, well, when we do the genetic testing, we'll be able to tell the genders. I was like, cool. So they told me what the gender was. Got home, asked my husband if he wanted to know. And he was like, no, I don't want to know. He was like, I don't want to seem ungrateful or that I'm not happy if it's not if it's not a boy. So he was like, okay. I was like, okay. So the paper that had the results on it, I put it on his nightstand and I was just like, well, when you're ready to look, here it is. So he didn't look that night. Next day, he didn't look. So what I did was I put it on the garage door. So it's inside the garage, but like, the door that goes into the kitchen. So I was like, I'm going to make him look. So he gets home he came home during lunch. And so I called him. I said, hey, did you see anything? Did you see anything abnormal or, anything? No, nothing. Matter of fact, I think he didn't even go through the garage. He went through the front door or something. I don't know, but he didn't see it. So then he gets off maybe an hour before me. So I'm like, waiting for him to call or text. So finally he calls. He was like, I saw it. I was like, you said, no. I can't remember, but I don't think he saw it. I think I had to call him and ask him if he saw it. I don't know. I can't remember, but he finally saw it. He saw it was a boy. He was like, yay, we did it. And let me tell you, he really thought the guy is responsible for providing that X or Y chromosome. So, I mean, women, we can only make girls, but the man is the one who determines the sex. Anyway, I digress. But he had done some research, child, or something, and saw that if when it's time to get pregnant, if the woman's, I guess, vaginal pH is more alkaline, then the chances of having a boy are better. I don't know, something, but child, he had me drinking alkaline water and doing all this stuff. So when we found out it was a boy, he thought that it was because of him. So we just let him have the credit. But anyway, so pregnancy with my son was pretty seamless, just like with Mackenzie. I'm in the gym working out just like I did with Mackenzie. I used to go to LA Fitness every day during lunch. And this lady comes up to me. I'm on the elliptical, so not even like doing, weighted squats like I be doing. But I'm on the elliptical, barely doing anything. And this older black lady comes up to me. She was like, "You okay? You should be doing all that?" And I was like, "Yeah." I mean, I'm not even out of breath, but I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." She was like, "Okay, well, just be careful, cause I used to babysit for this white lady, and she used to go running and stuff, and her baby ended up having autism. And I think it's because she was bouncing him around when she was pregnant, doing all that running." And I was like, that was literally like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The baby got autism from her running while she was pregnant. Child, old folks. But I was just like, "Yes, ma'am. Okay, I'll take it easy. Like, whatever." So I am expecting to have this baby earlier because people who you should never listen to, and people, them, they, whatever. People was like, "Oh yeah, the second time around, you're gonna have that baby quicker. Delivery's gonna be quicker. You're not gonna make it, 40 weeks or whatever. Oh, it's a boy. Oh yeah, you're gonna have him." I went 40 weeks and 2 days with this boy, just like I did with Mackenzie. So don't be getting your hopes up. And word of advice, don't tell people your due date because they will worry you to death. Starting 2 weeks before the due date, they call. It's not, "Hey, how you doing, friend? What's going on, daughter? Whatever. Have you had the baby yet? Have you had," like, that's all they call and ask about. So once you find your due date out, don't tell people. Just tell them, like if it's whatever, you can just tell them the month. "I'm due in May," or "I'm due late spring," or "I'm due whatever." I'm telling you, that's a jewel. Catch it. But anyway, so I go 40 weeks and 2 days. So again, on my due date, I'm working, had a staff meeting or something. Actually, the day before I went into labor with him, had a doctor's appointment on my due date. And they're like, "Are you having any contractions?" I'm like, "No, ain't nothing happening." They said, "Well, let's hook you up to the machine." So they hooked me up, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you having contractions?" I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I don't feel nothing." So anyway, go home, go to my little staff meeting the next day. I was like, "All right, see y'all tomorrow." I think it was a Thursday. We had the staff meeting. Friday morning, 5 a.m., something wakes me up. Maybe a contraction or a pain. The cool thing about my deliveries, I never had to guess. I never had Braxton Hicks contractions. I never had like no, teaser type contractions. Like when I started having contractions, I was going in labor. And I guess it's not like that for everybody. But for me, I never had to question, is this the real thing? Because it was. So anyway, started having contractions at 5 o'clock with my son. And they got, when I start having contractions, like they be hurting. And they're maybe 8 to 10 minutes apart. They always start like that. So it ain't no, I got one, maybe 30 minutes later. They be coming regular. So I called my mom. We had a plan. The plan was my mom and dad was going to come over, and if it was early in the morning or late at night, they was going to watch Mackenzie because she's almost 2 at the time. And then Jeremy was going to go to the hospital with me. So they get to the house. My dad is ready to watch Mackenzie because it's early. But Jeremy's like, "Well, I'm going to stay home with Kenzie. It's my last day with just her being by herself. I'm going to take her to school, daycare, whatever, blah, 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 blah." So I'm like, but my dad got up. He came over here to help. But no, I got it. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Mom, let's go. We get to the hospital, maybe like 5:30. I did my pre-registration, but for some reason I get there and they still want me to fill stuff out. Now, I ain't mentioned this. Well, I ain't gonna name no hospitals. I ain't gonna do that. But my daughter was born where I was born. We'll say that. My son was born at a different hospital in Atlanta. And this hospital is supposed to be nicer, all of this stuff. But I was agitated that they wanted me to do all this paperwork. Like, what was the point of me pre-registering, giving you ID, my insurance information, if you're going to ask for it all over again? Plus, once I got to the room, they were still having me sign stuff. And I'm like, this can't be legally binding because clearly I'm in distress. But anyway, get to the room. Some kind of way I called my doula, so she was there. So it's my mom and it's my doula. And this time around in my pregnancy, my doula had me do a birth vision board. And she had me, it was like a dot in the middle, and I drew like a circle that was like 10 centimeters. So you know what that what that represents, full, dilation or whatever. So that was in the middle of the vision board. I still got that canvas somewhere. Half the stuff done fell off, but I put all my words, my pictures and stuff on there. And so I took it with me, and I had it, there with me in the delivery room. So, to manifest the type of delivery that I wanted. So anyway, this is obviously progressing faster than with Mackenzie. And the contractions are coming. I'm standing up, trying to move around because I don't want to just lay there. And then I felt something shift. Something happened, but at the same time, my water breaks. Again, just like with my daughter. Just a splash, right? So I'm like, something happened. And my mom talking about, yeah, your water broke. Your water broke. Ma'am, I know that, but I'm just saying something on the inside happened. Like, I felt some stuff. So anyway, they're like, okay, well, come on, let's check you. So I did not have an epidural with Mackenzie. I got Stadol, which was supposed to be something to help with the pain, but it didn't really help with the pain. It did make me feel like I got some rest. Like once they gave it to me, I feel like I fell asleep for a long time, and I woke up, I felt refreshed, and I was like, I feel good. I said, Jeremy, did I have a baby? And they looked at me like, ma'am, no, you ain't had no damn baby. So, I mean, it felt really good. But let me back up and tell you about that. So I told them, and we back on number one, Mackenzie, my first pregnancy. I told them I didn't want an epidural. I didn't want none of the drugs or whatever. And so the nurse was like, well, are you sure? Because I'm going to have to do a line or, put the little thing in your vein. And I'm like, no, I don't want that. I'm good. So then once it started getting intense, a couple hours in, this is after they triaged me, after my water broke, I peed in the room and all this stuff. This, when we in the room, I'm having contractions in the bed. So I had, well, let me say this. So I'm in the bed, but they supposed to have like these squat bars. So it's like rails on the bed where you could like, hold on and kind of be in an upright position pushing as opposed to laying back. That junk was so bootleg, the little arm, it kept like breaking and falling over. So that's annoying for that to be happening while you're having contractions. But anyway, so back to, so it started getting intense, and I was just like, I need some kind of drugs. I need something. Then the nurse got the nerve to have an attitude and be like, I asked you if you wanted that in the beginning so I could put this needle in your arm. And bitch, I didn't want it in the beginning, but I want it now. So anyway, put it in my arm. So I'm guessing the reason that she had a problem was because she don't know how to find a damn vein. And it ain't hard to see on me. I mean, I'm the easiest person. But she's struggling. Finally, she put it in. So I got the little Stadol. It helped for, like I said, all of 5 minutes when I thought I took this nap. But after that, I was back to feeling regular. So anyway. Okay, now, back to the second pregnancy, second delivery with Joa. I'm standing there. Water breaks. Okay, so I always said that I didn't want to have an epidural. And if it got to the point where it was really, really hurting and I wanted an epidural, I hope it's too late. Because, you can get to a point where it's too late for the epidural, So my water breaks. It gets intense. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I think I want the epidural. So they like, okay, well, you got to lay down. Well, with the contractions and whatever else was going on, I felt like I wanted to be sitting up. So I was sitting up, like leaning forward. And they're like, we got to check you before we do anything. So you got to lay back. And I'm like, no, like, I didn't know how to verbalize it, but I'm like, my body is telling me I want to be sitting up, like leaning over. So for the next 2 minutes, all the nurses, like, they trying to talk me into just laying back so they can check me and see how dilated I am. So here go my mom, Kendra, lay back, do what they said, lay back. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I lay back, they check, and they like, oh yeah, it's too late for an epidural, ma'am. His head is like crowning. So I'm like, oh Lord, oh my God, okay. So now I'm trying to calm down, doing the little, I probably didn't do that, I don't know, I'm lying. So anyway, it's time, right? So, my doctor, it had been like a little crunchy nurse, I guess, or midwife. I don't know the lady. But I just remember it being her. And then, but when I pushed my son out, it was my doctor. And I'm like, they must have some type of special HOV lane, because she wasn't going to miss them delivery fees. She missed my daughter. Yeah, she missed my daughter being born, but she ain't missed my son. She was going to make that money. But anyway, so I'm ready to push, right? So I push. You know, they tell you to, push for 10. So I'm like, all the way to 10, right? And I'm like, and they was like, okay, that's good. Do that one more time, but this time, instead of blowing the breath, just hold it. And you'll have the baby on the next push. And I'm like, why are you lying to me? Why would you say it's just one more? They always talking about one more. But okay, I'm going to do it. So I go. And if that boy didn't pop out, he popped out on that second push. I said, ooh, that lady was telling the truth. And who was on the other end? It wasn't a white crunchy nurse. It was my doctor. Where did she come from? I don't know. She caught that baby, intercepted the baby so she can make that money. So anyway, he comes out and I'm like, ooh, I did it. Ooh, okay. So they give him to me, and guess what my son does? He pees on me. He's not even a minute old. And I feel this warm liquid going down my stomach. Now, you know who I haven't talked about this whole time? My husband. Why? Because his ass wasn't there. He missed it. He was in traffic. I had my son at 7:48 a.m., so not even 3 hours of labor. And I guess my husband was thinking, well, it took 14 hours to have Mackenzie. So he thought it was going to be a longer process than it was. But I told him it wasn't going to be as long. So anyway, he got there maybe 20. Our son was about 20 or 30 minutes old, had been to school, gone to college, all of that stuff. He missed all of that. But anyway, he gets there. They got the baby laying, they doing all his vitals or whatever in a little, not an incubator. They had like a little light on them, keeping them warm, whatever. So he over there doing his thing. And I think we stayed at the hospital 2 days. With my daughter, I wanted to leave after one day because even though I had insurance, I still had to pay. I had to pay my deductible. We'll say that was like $1,300 plus 20% of whatever. So I'm sitting here calculating like, okay, we stay 2 nights, carry the one. That's going to be more money I got to pay out of my pocket. So with Kenzie, we was out of there after one day. They was like, you sure you ready to go? Yes, I'm ready to go. Am I okay? Yes. Is the baby okay? Okay, we out of here. Give me that bag of diapers and them little ice pack pads, and we out of here. Joa, I was on that good pregnancy Medicaid. I ain't have no deductibles and copays. So I said, I'm going to stay as long as y'all let me. I stayed them 2 days. Then when it was time to go, I got those ice pack pads. I got those diapers. I was out of there. So first 2 deliveries, were really good. So next, I got to tell you about the twins. Now, this is the story you do not want to miss.